Okay, so we are going to read the Grimm's brothers story Rapunzel and then talk about it. So Rapunzel, there was once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress who had great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day the woman was standing by this window and looking down into the garden when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion, which is Rapunzel, and it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it. She quite pined away and began to look pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What ails you, dear wife?" "Ah," she replied, "if I can't eat some of the rampion, which is in the garden behind our house, I shall die." The man, who loved her, thought, "Sooner than let your wife die, bring her some of the rampion yourself, let it cost what it will." At twilight he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion, and took it to his wife. She at once made herself a salad of it, and ate it greedily. It tasted so good to her, so very good, that the next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden. In the gloom of evening, therefore, he let himself down again. But when he had clambered down the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How can you dare," said she with angry look, "descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? You shall suffer for it." "Ah," answered he, "let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not got some to eat." Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened and said to him, "If the case be as you say, I will allow you to take away with you as much rampion as you will. Only I make one condition. You must give me the child which your wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man in his terror consented to everything, and when the woman was brought to bed, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name of Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child under the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower, which lay in a forest and had neither stairs nor door, but quite at the top was a little window. When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let your hair down to me." Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them round one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up by it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest and passed by the tower. Then he heard a song which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress came there, and he heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. "If that is the ladder by which one mounts, I too will try my fortune," said he. And the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Immediately the hair fell down, and the king's son climbed up. At first, Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man, such as her eyes had never yet beheld, came to her. But the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for her husband, and she saw that he was young and handsome, she thought, he will love me more than old Dame Gothel does. And she said yes, and laid her hand in his. She said, I will willingly away with you, but I do not know how to get down. Bring you a skein of silk every time that you come, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and you will take me on your horse. They agreed that until that time he should come to her every evening, for the old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked none of this until once Rapunzel said to her, Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up than the young king's son. He is with me in a moment. Ah, you wicked child, cried the enchantress. What do I hear you say? I thought I had separated you from all the world, and yet you have deceived me. In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice round her left hand, seized a pair of scissors with the right, and snip snap, they were cut off, and the lovely braids lay on the ground. And she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day that she cast out Rapunzel, however, the enchantress fastened the braids of hair which she had cut off to the hook of the window, and when the king's son came and cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me, she let the hair down. The king's son ascended, but instead of finding his dearest Rapunzel, he found the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. Ah, she cried mockingly, you would fetch your dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it and will scratch out your eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to you. You will never see her again. The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did not but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to him that he went towards it. And when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and fell on his neck and wept. Two of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happy and contented. So, what did you think of this story?
Mm. Well, I thought this the story was overall was just about development and how um, nature can't really be impeded in
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
end.
think so. Yeah, life finds a way, like the line from Jurassic Park, the movie. Um, yeah, yeah. So from the beginning, there is the walled garden. The garden is like an organized version, a human organized version of nature inside a wall. So it's trying to separate it out, trying to prevent it from growing out, trying to prevent other things from
Mhm.
coming in. But yes, it sings, so to speak, or it calls out to the mother. And so that there's like desire for consumption and growth. There's kind of a, kind of a sexual thing there. There's almost like maybe a virgin birth or something, or at least, you know, the plant has something to do with Rapunzel's mother giving birth to her, not just
Mhm.
Rapunzel's mother's husband.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, later on, Rapunzel is in the tower calling out, and the prince finds her. And, you know, when she is again in a tower trying to be confined. She's later at the end of the story in a desert trying to be confined to the hinterland, away from all life. But the prince still finds her through her suffering. So yeah, there's the development throughout. There's a plant in a walled garden that goes to eventually, becomes a beautiful girl, becomes a couple, becomes a family, and in the castle too, reigning.
Yeah, and when I go back to the beginning and you kind of hear about the person trying to trap or keep Rapunzel in, it says that she's an enchantress.
Right.
So I I assume that's another word for like a witch. So, someone using magic and to control nature,
Yeah,
or kind of exert her will over the natural world in a
that's
way.
right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and for her particular purposes. And yeah, I compared her to a dragon because a dragon, at least in some European cultures, hoards gold, which could be used to help people do all sorts of human things. Gold is, meant to be in circulation, meant to be used, but a dragon just wants to keep it. And there's something about that
Mm,
greed that helps it to live forever or something.
mm,
This idea of keeping something for
mhm,
yourself rather than sharing it
mhm.
as part of the natural, interaction of life.
Yeah, and kind of going with that more like going against nature, like the enchantress tells the father when he's caught stealing the Rampion, that uh, he may continue bringing the Rampion, but um, he must give her the child and she will raise it at like a mother. But of course, she's in that confined garden and kind of cutting out the father figure um, by doing that. So it's kind of, again, just kind of continuing with the theme of kind of going against that natural order in a way,
Yeah,
by
controlling
kind of
everything for
eliminating.
one's own purposes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of, and again, just kind of eliminating the uh, like a father, or a
Yeah.
male figure in her life.
Yeah, just like later she tries to eliminate the prince. She tries to keep the prince from coming to Rapunzel. Then when she can't do that, she evacuates Rapunzel to the hinterlands, to the desert, and kind of, yeah, damages the prince when he falls in the in the thorn bushes and blinds himself. Yeah. Yeah, and that is kind of the keeping the women from the men. It's yeah, keeping natural life, obviously childbirth and things like that from happening. It's all this like controlling natural things so that they cannot fulfill their purpose. The Rampion, i.e. Rapunzel plant, has to just be seen and not be eaten. Rapunzel has to be just seen and heard and not have a relationship and not have a marriage and not give birth and not be part of society either.
Yeah. Yeah, and like later in the story towards the end, the enchantress calls Rapunzel a beautiful bird, but kind of mockingly, and telling the prince that the beautiful bird is no longer singing in the
Yeah,
forest. So
yeah,
um it just kind of uh yeah, it kind of it's kind of like a beautiful bird sings to kind of to mate and you know live naturally. But like
but
you said,
not to
she tried to
her.
eliminate that.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so yeah, just comparing her to the bird kind of adds to that idea um, you suggested.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, yeah, not a bird in high in a nest in a tree to mate and to interact with all of
Yeah.
nature, but more like a caged bird high up in a hung just a toy, just a decoration to
Mhm.
entertain one.
Mhm.
And that may be the fact that she used that analogy may indicate that she doesn't understand, what the bird is, the so-called bird Rapunzel is to the prince
Mhm.
or to any man who might want to marry her or something. She's just to the witch or the enchantress, all she is a plaything for her
Mhm.
particular purposes, her control.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And she just forgets that a bird doesn't sing just to sing. Uh,
Yeah, I had never thought
yeah.
about that. Yeah, but to the cat, it doesn't care what the bird is, and she compares herself to a cat. As
Mhm.
the cat only, at least to in the enchantress is telling. I mean, it's just to control, and that is a good analogy where maybe a cat does kind of torture little animals and things. It doesn't just necessarily hunt to eat and everything, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I pointed out to you that this story is like some other stories in that the prince is not trying to does not slay a dragon, so to speak. The enchantress goes untouched in this book. She's just
Mhm.
thwarted. That's all. Her purpose is thwarted. But he suffers for her, after Rapunzel is whisked off to the desert. He runs away from the enchantress, and he's in pain already, emotional pain, and he is blinded by the thorn bushes, and he wanders about eating roots and berries. For a long time, he's like a wandering mendicant. In the old religious traditions, a beggar, and he has to suffer greatly before he can go to the ends of the earth, symbolically, so to speak, when
Mhm.
he goes to the desert where she's now with two children.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking of just how funny to me is that with the Rapunzel story, the thing people most think about is the long hair, but it doesn't seem to be the main part of the story or play such a significant part in the story.
yeah, it's just a
Um,
very salient image.
yeah,
uh and well, I mean, we could talk about that, like, so obviously it's a sign of her vitality, her fecundity. It's a sign of how life can't be controlled. It's literally overflowing from the
yeah,
window, from the tower.
yeah. Yeah, and it is compared to spun gold. So I know in a lot of these stories, spun gold is used to indicate value because
Yeah.
you've heard of spun gold like in other several other stories.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, maybe Rumpelstiltskin or something,
yeah,
but yeah, and it is valuable. It is this is a part where the valuable thing is used. Rapunzel is using it to, yeah. So the witch sees it as a use, sees its use as helping her to get up to the tower to kind of visit her surrogate daughter, but then it's used in a different way to help the prince. And so again, this is
Mhm.
an instance of where, just like with the Rampion or the Rapunzel plant, the something that comes from life is tried to be controlled and used by the enchantress, but then other people use it for a different purpose,
Mhm.
which actually you might say is part of life and evolution of life in general. There's this
Mhm.
idea called acceptation, where when something develops as a part of evolution, it then can be used for a different purpose. So, for instance, the tongue seems to be an example of this, where we have a tongue in order to move food around in our mouth and to detect poisons. But because it is this thing that can cover our windpipe, it was exapted later on by the brain and whatnot to be able to be used for speech.
Mm.
But yeah, life finds a way, right? Life finds a way,
Mhm.
life finds a different way. It's not always just for simple survival, but for development itself. And that's how this
Mhm.
story is like about development, like you were talking about. But what about the hair? We could try to draw that out, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I suppose it is still more important than I originally indicated. Because yeah, the enchantress does cut it towards the end when she finds out that the prince was seeing Rapunzel. So
right.
she
And
is
so,
and trying to take away her value in a way to
right.
kind of make her less uh I
Attractive and
guess less as
available.
attractive. Um
Yeah. And inaccessible again.
yeah. Yeah, and in a way maybe kind of trying to revert her back to maybe kind of being a child in a way with like short hair because that took so long to grow. So
That's
she's trying
right.
to kind of keep her as a child,
Yeah, very
kind
good.
of.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very good. And God, what was I gonna say?
So she takes the hair and yeah, just share that it's a little interesting that it specifies she wrapped it twice around her left hand
Mm,
and then cut it with her right hand
mm.
with the scissors. So I don't know if just her being an enchantress, the left hand path is kind of signifying the left hand path. She's kind of she's taking with being an enchantress.
What
So
does left hand path mean? There's something
I
bad about that?
no I think that's just kind of a common term. I don't know how long it's been around, but
Hmm.
people that practice magic a lot of the times are said to
Mm.
be taking the left hand path.
Oh, so
So
that's
kind of
like a
like
darker alternative or something,
yeah,
or
yeah, kind
less,
of
less,
um
yeah,
less
not
conventional.
less
Yeah.
conventional. Yeah.
Um so but I don't know if at the time this was Britain that was already floating around.
Mm. It might have been, but yeah, the fact that she wrapped it around twice, I thought Rapunzel had a lot more hair than that. How big is this woman's arm?
But yeah, yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting detail to mention. So my thoughts
Right,
went
yeah.
there.
Well, she would presumably be right hand and use her right hand to cut the
Yeah,
locks.
that too. It might have been practical.
Mm, yeah. But yeah, I thought that was a good point about that being like her trying to revert Rapunzel.
Mhm.
Anything about the twins, like Rapunzel and him having twins?
Mhm.
Because yeah, there's a sort of parallel with the plant and then her.
I don't know exactly of the plant, but I kind of thought like she'd been separated from the natural world and through that just from men and that maybe just her having a boy and a girl kind of symbolizes kind of the restoration of that natural order
Oh,
where
are
she's
they a
not
boy and a girl?
separated. Yeah.
Oh,
Where
yeah,
she's
a boy and a girl. Yeah.
yeah, where she's not completely separated from what's most natural. Um,
Yeah. They can restart civilization somehow.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, two of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. So she washed his eyes a little bit like reborn, a little bit like a baptism. Yeah, he suffered and he went into the desert and almost he died to his old life and he was reborn with her love. Yeah. Well, do you have other thoughts about this one? There's uh
mhm.
there's some ascent and descent. There's like the doesn't the husband in the beginning, he has to ascend the garden wall and descend it again, and then the enchantress is right there and she's staring at
Mhm.
him. There's stuff that we could talk about with eyes, and he has to ascend the plant to his wife, and then the she takes it away. She's always taking Rapunzel away, to other places, to
Mhm.
the tower and up into the tower, and then down back and away into the desert. The prince ascends every night to see her. And I think maybe you mentioned there might be a body pun with that or something, ascending or ladder or mounting her hair or something like that.
Yeah, he said he was gonna mount the ladder to get to her.
Yeah, he was looking forward to that. Hmm. Yeah. Any more thoughts about this? Another thing I was thinking is that so we're talking about how the enchantress is so unnatural. She is trying to control everything, walling things off, putting things in a tower, uh, um, relegating them to the hinterlands, to the desert. So she is in a way like a bad leader, like badly using laws and everything. I was reminded of this because when the husband in the first part of the story, he wants to take the Rampion to in a sort of loving gesture for his wife, even though he knows it's a very risky undertaking. She accuses him of being a thief, and uh, how can you dare, she said with an angry look, to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? You shall suffer for it. So she's like acting like the law, the sheriff, the societal kind of policing force.
Mhm.
She's always doing various things to control the activity of life. Sorry to bore you with that.
Mhm.
But like she's kind of like a bad leader, like the sheriff of
Mhm.
Nottingham or something like that.
Mhm.
Like instead of using the ways of man and laws and things for the thriving of society, for keeping down maybe the bad things that might develop, she's trying to keep the natural and good things from developing.
Mhm.
So again, like you said, this story is about development and the forces that would sort of freeze development and keep development from happening, from the
Mhm.
natural kind of development from happening. And yeah, there's such a parallel here with the in the beginning of the story, the husband who tries to get the Rampion, the Rapunzel plant, and he descends the wall, and then suddenly, like the enchantress is there staring at him with venomous eyes. And
Mhm.
in many of the stories, they talk about how the eyes of the witch is red, and this isn't the same thing, but again, the eyes are emphasized, the
Mhm.
intensity, maybe the yeah, the intensity of the eyes. And she compares herself to a cat, which you can kind of see like a
Mhm.
cat's eyes in the at nighttime or something. So
Mhm.
there's, and then later on, there's that scene is the next when the prince goes up into the tower, he ascends and then descends down from the window a little bit, and again he's like caught dead in the in the looks of in the watchful, uh, venomous look, as the book says, uh, of the enchantress eyes. It's like this parallel.
Yeah. Yeah, like later in the story, the enchantress tells Rapunzel that she had separated her from her world, but that Rapunzel had deceived her. And then she cuts the hair and takes her to the desert. So I thought that quote just really emphasized how not right her relationship is with nature, to where she kind of treats it as an offense to
Yeah.
her, or like a deception, like she's saying, to kind of, and not something that just is
Yeah, that's right. It's
in someone's
someone,
life. Yeah.
yeah, we've talked before about having versus being needs and
Mm-hmm.
being confused about things like where
Mm-hmm.
you have a being need of needing to develop or needing to be loved, and instead you seek to have something to fulfill that being need. So instead of living in a way that you become mature, you try to buy a fancy car or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or instead of being loved, you try to have sex. You're trying to, and it seems like the witch is always, yeah, trying to have things, and the
Mm-hmm.
other characters are trying to be and become things,
Mm-hmm.
be and become, yeah, different versions of themselves. Yeah. Yeah, do you think she's kind of like the witch is, I mean, the enchantress is kind of like a poisoned mother type of figure, you know.
Yeah.
She's trying to keep her surrogate daughter from she's trying to force her to be chaste, force her to never marry, force her to always just be this beautiful kind of toy for her, that
Mm-hmm.
she can come see every day in the tower and kind of just behold.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for her to she doesn't she's not concerned with what Rapunzel
Mm-hmm.
or anybody is in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's basically like motherhood at its darkest.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Controlling everything, and it's like she helps things to be begotten. Like she lets the husband take the Rampion plant, but then she's stealing the baby. Yeah, she's always trying to control everything after that. Okay. Well, do you have any more thoughts about this for now?
Not so far.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a good discussion, and yeah, we'll hopefully do this again next week.